Big Ideas Welcome. Season 3 continues. We're pairing business legends with ambitious founders, talking about big ideas, talking about creativity, talking about successes, failures, and lessons learned. I'm Chris McAdoo, and this episode means a lot to me. Certainly not that the other ones haven't, but as an artist first. So I've been lucky to be an artist my entire life, as well as, all of the other things that I've been fortunate enough to do. But to say that to be a maker, to be a creative person, to be the creative professional matters to me is an understatement that I can't even begin to explain, right? And so I want you to think differently around what it means to be a maker, what it means to be a creator. Too many people think that that's not for them, that that's not a thing that works. But I'm here to tell you that it absolutely does. And in this day and age, it is more important than ever to find the people that make, to find the people that create, to find the people that create with their hands and their minds, to bring a point of view to life, right? A point of view that no one else has or has had before. And then someone who is willing to share that point of view. Today's episode, how to make a living doing what you love, or at least not die trying. That's the theme. We've got David Harman and Siobian Jones, two makers who have turned artistic passions into thriving businesses from very different places and points of view. David Harman is the founder of Native Maps, where art and place intersect. These hand screen printed neighborhood maps, national park maps, and just really cool collabs are available all over the United States. And they're more than just designs, they're stories that capture communities and coffee shops and parks and record stores and the places that make a city feel like home. David also co-founded the Maker City, helping build Knoxville's creative ecosystem and proving that artists and makers not only can but will thrive as entrepreneurs. He also runs Sunday Studios, a creative space, a shared space for artists and photographers and makers of all kinds. Siobian Jones is the founder of A Mighty Wig, specializing in custom wigs for theaters and individuals, people experiencing hair loss all across the world. She's got a career spanning salon, education, Broadway, and even Cirque du Soleil. She brings this artistry, craftsmanship, and care as a mission-driven approach to her work. And you may ask, wait a second, why a map maker and a wig maker? What I want you to do is think about, again, what is a maker? What is a creative? What does it mean to blank? You may consider yourself one, you may not, and that's okay. But these are two people from different places with different points of view, bringing their passions to life. And I think I've said this before, but passion is all too often talked about as a thing you follow. Follow your passion, believe in your dreams. Absolutely not. If you want to accomplish something and you are passionate about it, you don't follow it, right? You don't follow it, you attack it. You pursue it with an absolute unending faith that it is going to happen, and it is going to happen for you. It may not look like what you intended it to be when you started, but that passion is not something to follow. It is something to pursue, and that's what David and Siobian have done with Native Maps, A Mighty Wig, and of course, the Maker City. Oh, and the Maker City is celebrating 10 years this year. It's big times. They share the realities of building those creative careers, the ups, the downs, the creative roadblocks, as well as the creative opportunities. They talk about financial clarity and just constant learning, adaptation, and living as a creative in a modern world. Anyway, again, as an artist, this matters a lot to me, and it should matter to you. And I hope it does. And I hope it does. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Where does creativity go from here? Hit us up, hello@bigideaswelcome.com. We've got a lot to dive into. Again, congrats to the Maker City on 10 years. David and Siobian, let's get to work. Hey, everybody. David Harman, Siobian Jones. Absolutely. Just stoked to have you on this episode of the Big Ideas Welcome podcast. Everybody out there in Big Ideas land, they've gotten to know a little bit about you. And we are ready to learn from your experiences, learn from the roads that you guys have taken. The theme of this episode is, of course, how to make a living doing what you love, or at least not die trying. You may be scraped, you may be battered, you may be bruised, but you're in it for the long haul. We're going to dig deep into what it means to even be a quote unquote professional creative. Whatever that means. We're going to talk about, it's the process of learning, of unlearning, of money, of school, and everything in between. And we're going to start off with a question from someone you know well, David. Nancy Solomon. Nancy is, I would say, just a legend in the creative community here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where this podcast is from, in case you didn't know, the Maker City. And Nancy heads up a shop called Rolla, a wonderfully local-focused creative outlet, creative shop in the heart of the old city in downtown Knoxville. We're going to talk more about the founding of what would become the Maker City in a moment. So I want you to just stay tuned for that. But Nancy is one of the fellow founders of the Maker City, along with David and Joy, 10 years ago, right? And 10 years of native maps. Nancy says a lot of people, they want to turn this quote unquote creative passion into a career. And they think that does just mean doing what you love. And if you do that, the money and the career and all that will follow. But we know that's more complicated than that. So from your experience, what does it really take to make it as a creative professional beyond just quote unquote talent and passion?
A lot of sinking or swimming.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of just fast learning, just absorbing everything you can as fast as you can, and a lot of support, friends, support. Knoxville Entrepreneur Center definitely was a big support for me. But a lot of friends, a really good husband.
And a good partner can mean a lot. And we're going to dig into what it means to sort of be in a community that is both competitive and collaborative. And David, I'll ask the same question: is what's been your experience with a quote that you provided, which is that there is no cruise control and discomfort is your best friend.
Yeah. It's just a little dose of reality to start the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. For Nancy's question, I think I agree with all of those things that you just said. It's like the community, the family, just the support system, the KEC. Those have been huge for me personally. I've heard the question before the show, and I think the other word that came to mind is vigilance. I think that it's easy to jump into a creative pursuit and be a creative. You just kind of go for it, and you let it be messy. You kind of believe in what you're doing, and I think there's a lot of the sort of fake it till you make it kind of just pump yourself up with confidence as much as you can, and eventually it will become a thing. But I think there's a level of being a good steward of what you create and what you put out into the world. And when you do it for long enough, it sort of becomes not a question of if you'll figure certain things out, but when you'll figure certain things out. And there are a lot of just growing pains that they're going to happen no matter what, if you're going to keep doing it. So I think just always being up for continuing to grow. And it could be something as basic as accountant. I'm still working on that, or I'm still working on financial clarity, and I've been doing that since year one. but it's all just a process of just continuing to kind of dial it in. So I think being up for the process and having vigilance in those in all of it, in the minutia, and doing that as you go.
Being able to accept the stuff that isn't the studio, that isn't, what people see as the work.
Hello, I'm Ann Templeton, the Director of Maker Initiatives. You may have heard on this podcast that Knoxville is known as the Maker City, and it's a place to make a living doing what you love to do. And for 10 years, the Maker City has been the greater Knoxville area community of makers, which consists of artists, creatives, small-scale manufacturers, and their supporting entities. It's all led by the appointed Mayor's Maker Council, where we collaborate on partnerships, programs, and opportunities in support of Knoxville's maker community. We build connections, and that's what it's really all about, to drive business success. We link makers to community, industry experts, and the local economy. You can learn more, get involved, and check out over 250 makers in our directory at themakercity.org. And you can also join us with 10,000 of our closest friends on Instagram. We hope to see you there.
Remember that this season is all about learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the cool things is that David has figured a lot of this out
Yeah.
in a different arena,
Yeah.
but the artistic process, the focus, the vision that's there, and you're sort of on one side of the journey, and he's in the middle of it. And so this is literally an illustration of what we're talking about,
Right.
of finding those people that like have been through this particular pain.
Right.
And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, I'm actively figuring it out. Like there's not a lot that's actually figured out. So like, it's a messy process, and it's you just have to find people who are up for that messiness, and I think also just being really upfront about like, hey, this isn't going to be perfect. It might not be pretty. It's going to be messy along the way, and finding a system where you're still able to kind of circle back and connect and refine and keep that process going. Yeah. So I think that's where creativity sort of embeds itself in the business itself, not just the products that you make, when it kind of keeps evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it figured out.
Yeah. I guess I'm still trying to figure out the first step of whether it's, you brought up collaboration, like maybe I need to collab with another hairstylist, because that's what I need. I need somebody not necessarily who's a professional in wigs. I need somebody who's a professional in hair, who understands hair color. And there's plentiful hairstylists. So maybe it needs to be more of a collaboration rather than trying to bring in an employee in the beginning. And there still would be training, because wigs there's a lot of nuance. It's not the same as just putting color on somebody's head, but that first step is this scariest thing, I think.
I think the cool thing about your business, though, is that there is a mission component to it, and it really is doing something good out in the world. And even if most of what you do are bespoke products for high-end customers, you have the desire and the will to solve a problem right down the line. Yeah. So you're creating stability now for yourself, but you also know that that's going to create more bandwidth for you to go and do something really meaningful. And that ties into collaboration in a really cool way, because it opens the door to who's willing to collaborate with you, and also like how much skin in the game they're willing to bring to the table, because and it kind of removes a little bit of the stress of money also, where there might be a partnership where it's like, hey, let's do a trial run on this piece for this person who needs this product, and then it's more about solving a problem for that person and less about like, hey, this needs to be financially viable from day one. There might be more risk that collaborators are willing to go to for the added benefit of doing something good in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sean, thinking about that and collaborations and anything and everything in between, we're going to pivot a little bit to sort of the community at large. And a lot of creatives, we like to live in our studios. We like to exist there. So as someone who I have seen really grow both as an artist and as a business, what kind of things would you talk to, or what would you tell a creative who struggles to put themselves out there? If it's networking, if it's that community, David, you were talking about, like, you're still cold calling, man.
Yeah.
So Siobhan, as someone who's starting to put herself like into that community, what has worked for you, and what advice would you give to 20-year-old Siobhan that's about to go out into the world?
Right. I would say just find ways to be involved in the local community. So like when I just moved to Knoxville 5 years ago. So like my way of doing that was I joined Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. I started doing stuff with the Maker City. I started looking for the community that existed in Knoxville to kind of like figure out where I fit in. And that's what I would tell anybody that's starting a business, especially when they just moved somewhere and they don't really, like, I came here with like an online clientele, but I didn't have a local clientele. Yeah. So that really helped of just like building that word of mouth. And yeah, I say just fake it till you make it. Like, keep going. Even if you're like somebody who's like really introverted and like that kind of scene is scary, like you just have to. Yeah.
What did it feel like? What did it feel like? So someone will set some. There's sometimes will say, don't be afraid of doing this or that. But I actually no. The fear's the point.
Yeah. Do it anyway.
Like, okay, what did it feel like the first time 5 years ago? You're new to the city. Where did you move from?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. So you come from Las Vegas. You're new. Okay, you moved to the middle of the Southeast. Here you go. What did it feel like that first time you walked into a room? If it's the Maker City, if it's the community, whatever, and you were like, all right, now what?
Yeah. It was terrifying because, you brought up the one time I said I didn't feel like I could go to the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center and really understand what people were talking about when I first moved here, because I've been an artist for 22 years, but I've only been a business owner at this capacity for 5 years. So when I moved here, I opened a business as soon as I moved here. And yeah, so like I just went for it. And I knew nothing about business. Like I couldn't tell you anything about even what like the word scaling meant. Like I was just like, I know how to do hair. I'm really good with people. I'm really good with wigs. So I'm just going to do this. And yeah, so it was terrifying. It's terrifying. I felt like I was the dumbest person in the room. Every room I went into, except for if I went into a salon, I felt like I could hold my own there.
It's kind of it's a sort of a funny line that I give sometimes, but I find it invigorating to be the dumbest guy in the room. You know what I mean? Because what it means is that you have, to your credit, you have made the decision to surround yourselves with people that are intimidating.
Yeah.
Right. And then you made the decision to go and say, hey, what's up?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Siobhan. What do you do? That has such a power.
Yeah.
I mean, David, how did you go about sort of introducing yourself, to the community, both as an artist and as a business person?
Yeah, I think that for me, when I got out of grad school, so I went to school for painting at UT. Yep. Got out of school. A university setting has a built-in community. So, you have colleagues and professors and people that are around. I came out of that, started doing native maps, and I built no community. And I started looking around and just looking for other people doing creative stuff in town. So that's how I started to get connected to just other people, printmakers, and Central Collective opened right around that time. Nancy at Rolla, she was, that's a great hub to kind of connect you to other people. And it was really a desire for community for sure. 10 years ago, it was kind of just like bubbling up in Knoxville. It's definitely changed a lot since then. But now it's like a known thing. It's like there are people doing creative things, and it's a common thing to walk up to somebody else who you know or you might know from a distance who runs another business and to say like, hey, I've seen what you do. That's awesome. There's such a cool community here of just people like rooting each other on, which I really, really value, because coming from Vegas, like that's a big city. I came from Dallas, and there's not really that there. You don't just like go up to somebody else, and if anything, you sort of look at people as a kind of competition, or
Yeah.
but there's something in the water here that's different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Vegas was very, and like while Vegas is a big city, theater in Vegas is very small. And especially when you get into the wig industry of theater in Vegas is even smaller. So like it did feel like you were constantly competing with each other. Like you would be friends with each other, but then as soon as a job came up, the competition is there, and um it, it definitely had a toxicity to it. You kind of always felt like you were being compared to your friends or your coworkers, like that you were disposable unless you always were the one to show up, always were the one to say yes. So there was a lot of anxiety and stress around that. And so it was so different moving to Knoxville and like feeling very welcomed as a brand new business owner. And nobody, even though I felt like the dumbest person in the room and like all my questions were going to like expose me, nobody ever made me feel dumb. They just, if I had a question, they just answered it. And like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like this, because like, honestly, in some of the theater stuff, like if you you just didn't ask questions because it exposed weakness, like you just figured it out. Like when I came into the theater industry, I did a very similar thing as to what I did here as far as like just working my way in, because I don't have a theater background. I didn't do theater in school. Went straight into being a hairstylist and just knew I wanted to work in theater. So I just started volunteering all of my services and time just to get into the community. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it worked.
There's a lot of like bravery in that, and just like showing up in a new city, new industry, expanding a business. There's so much, like you were just so willing to go through so much discomfort just to kind of be pregnant and carve out a space for yourself. And honestly, that I think the discomfort piece is something that separates you out from other businesses or other competition, or it creates this sort of natural buffer of, well, other people might want to do something creative, they might want to run a business, but they might not be willing to go through the discomfort again and again and again to learn something new. And it does start to kind of separate you out to where you can feel confident, you can sort of take up some more space because of that.
Pierce, what is today's K-Brew roast?
I think today's K-Brew roast is the myth that you have to keep up with anybody else in business. This can look like my buddy reads a book a week, so I've got to read a book a week. It can look like this tech company is scaling at 37 times a year, and I run a more traditional business, and we're not going to do that. So this idea that you've got to keep up with other people, I would love to roast the heck out of that. And also just say, you're on your own journey, you're on your own mission. Sometimes, a lot of times, less is more. Be careful about adding and keeping up with others.
Where do the people go to get a little special offer for our Big Ideas Welcome audience?
Download the K-Brew app, K-Brew Coffee and Bagels, and you will get a free coffee or tea on your first visit or your next visit if you already go to K-Brew.
Well, as you become more confident, your vision changes, your needs change, and the things that once mattered to you maybe matter less, right? And as we sort of go to tie a bow on this conversation with a couple more questions, I do want to say, like, what does success mean for you? And how is it different than when you started out, right? Like now you said that you have the building, the Sunday studio. The Sunday studio is a beautiful building. You have 2 kids, you have the house, you have a life that maybe wasn't there when you started down this journey. Siobhan, like you went from there. And what a cool story to be able, David, to say that discomfort of like, not only am I moving, but I'm going to do all this other stuff too. And so, yeah, David, what does success look like now to you? What does that even mean?
Yeah, that's evolved a lot. And I'm still dealing with this stuff, just how that's changing over time over the last 10 years. And I'm curious how you relate to just general mental health, stress, anxiety, like that whole component, because I think that's such a big deal for entrepreneurs, and that ties into success and like, what do you want out of your business? But I started Native Maps out of a need, really out of a need to make money fast. Sure. Like I was in grad school, we had a kid in the middle of grad school, and our family life started then. And wow, like 9 months was not long enough. Like I needed to start like now, I needed to have a business now, and it needed to make money. Like, and it really felt like a Mission Impossible scene of life. If you cut the wrong wire, then it's just, do you ever feel that way?
Every single day.
It feels like everything's at stake all the time.
All the time.
And it's cool because you have the freedom to call their own shots. But what people don't realize is that you're also always in a constant state of designing what success means or what you want your life to look like. Yeah. From all the way down to hour by hour, what do you get with your life? And that's pretty daunting. And the business will run your life for you if you let it. So a lot of coming from like where I started, which was a place of survival, that is like a hardwired knot that just found a home in my gut, of like, I have to survive. Like, this is how I survive. And it really removed a lot of the creativity or like the feeling of being an artist, because I just really felt like I need to make smart decisions here to mitigate risk and to just make enough money to live. And so coming from that place now, like fast forward 10 years where there's a little more stability, like every year is different, but somehow I've done it for 10 years. And so I guess there's stability, but coming, arriving at that place now and realizing like, all right, I don't need this survival mechanism anymore. Like I don't need that as much. And being able to sort of ask like, well, what do I value the most, or what does success look like? I feel like that looks a lot like freedom of time. It's like I would much rather have more time than money. And that's something we've tried to value along the way. And I think relationships are becoming more and more important. Like, who am I pulling in? How am I connecting with them? Again, getting out of like the survival mode and more into like how is this impacting me and just the value that I find in my own life. So I feel like that's kind of where I'm at now, is just like, if I can start to carve out more and more time to do other meaningful things or have other meaningful relationships, that's what success looks like for me. Yeah. What about you?
It's similar. Yeah, I would say in the beginning, I still kind of live in survival mode, but it's less around like making money and more around like meeting all my deadlines. Cause like basically I have, say I have 20 projects a month, every single one of those have and I probably have more than that, but every one of those have a deadline, and so for me, I really had to learn how to hold boundaries. Not just like with the people in my life, but really with myself, and then also with my clients, and and it's not even really always holding boundaries. It's like being really honest with how long it's going to take me to do something. Because used to, I would have so much of anxiety around being like, oh, this is going to take me a couple weeks, but I know you want it now, and I'm afraid if I don't give it to you now, then you're going to either go somewhere else or be unhappy with me, or, whatever. And now I am just very honest with like, this is going to take me 4 to 5 weeks. If you don't have that let me help you find another solution. Because I'm one of those people, and this is where, like, I love Knoxville, the community over competition. I will give somebody a phone number to another wig shop in town. I'm not opposed to that, because I would rather, I mean, especially you work with a vulnerable clientele, people who are experiencing hair loss, whether they're going through chemo or alopecia or whatever it is, like, they need solutions now. So if I can't offer that to you, I will give you another solution, whether it's me or somebody else. And being really honest with myself and others about that has brought so much relief to myself and my business. And I find people really respect it more than me just like, yeah.
It's like you probably tried to accommodate people out of respect for them and care for them. But it's a different kind of care to be honest, and be upfront about the expectations.
Yeah.
And it serves them in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. I find people are more loyal to me because of my, like, honesty and just how I am with them.
Liberty.
Yeah.
Well, and what that is sort of that shift from that scarcity. There's only so much to go around to that abundance of like, no. I am providing something of value, whether it's an item or an experience or a relationship. And to do that effectively, we have to respect each other, right? And I think that is a pretty cool place to sort of take this to the end of the conversation, but because we are scarce on time. But and I appreciate you all, but thinking about that success being time, success being freedom, success being from the entrepreneur standpoint. Yes, it is about fulfilling your own destiny. Yes, it is about pursuing that passion and making that living, right? So that is a very boots on the ground thing that I think all of us deal with. I share that pit in the stomach of like, I've always worked since I was 12 years old. I don't know what else to do. When people ask me like, oh, why did you start your first business at 20 years old? I'm like, I didn't know any better. Yeah. I should have gotten a job, I could be a Walmart greeter. But so I think there's a lot of folks, that is a universal thing, right? But again, sort of being in that discomfort, but being in a collaborative community like the Maker City, I do want to take this time to say, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of that. And so, Siobhan, you've been here for 5 years, right? What has it meant to you to know that, if it's the KDC or the Maker City community has been there along this way, and what kind of difference have you seen it make, not just for you, but the friends that you've made within the community?
Have I seen it make a difference for? Yeah. Oh my God, yes. I'm telling you, like, if it wasn't for KEC, like, I still wouldn't understand business today. Like, yeah, it's made the biggest difference in my life of just being able to sit at this table and, like, understand everything that's being said, and to be able to do what's the big idea pitch and, like, hold my own there, and be able to come to the conversations with Gara and be able to, go back and forth. And then everybody in those rooms, I think, are learning just like I am and bringing more to the table. So, I mean, like, I've my business would still just be like me sitting in a room crying over hair if it wasn't for Knoxville Entrepreneur Center.
That's awesome. Well, and David, you've been there from the beginning, 10 years of the Maker City. So you guys, you and Nancy and Joy, there was a decision to go to New York. For those of you who may not be familiar, Etsy named Knoxville the first official Maker City in the United States. And David, you played such a huge part in that. One, what kind of led you down that path, and what changes have you seen, 10 years on, 10 years of Native Maps, 10 years of the Maker City, that you feel has been a good thing? And
Yeah. So in like Knoxville at large, I think what led me down that path was, like I always say, that Knoxville always was a Maker City, and we just put a name on it.
Nice.
I was, a better, like, and I think what that really means is you have a community of people that are collectively involved in the creative act. And I think that lately I've been thinking about creativity on this spectrum of from consumerism to creativity. And it's when you think about it that way, you can be creative about so many different things. But creativity is never consuming. It's always putting something else out there into the world. And there is this, I think that there's a pull towards both poles, right? There's a pull towards consumption. We're all very familiar with that. We're familiar with, capitalism, consumption, consumerism, all that stuff. We don't need like a refresher course on that. But I think sometimes we need a refresher course on creativity as sort of an opposing, balance of the scales to that. And I think that's what attracted me to Knoxville. That's what kept me in Knoxville in the first place, is that there was just a community of people that were engaged in the act of creation and creating in so many different ways. And it is not an uncommon thing to run into somebody here and say, oh, what do you make? What do you do? What are you involved in that's bringing something to the table, or like adding to the kind of the cultural fabric of the city? And it can be something really small, something really big. You could be putting in like a garden at the school down the street, or relying on a creative business for your livelihood. So I think that's what brought us, or took us down that path in the first place, is that was already here in Knoxville for whatever reason before I even got here. And then now looking at Knoxville, it's just the fact that there's a name on that there's, it's the Maker Exchange is on a building in downtown. We're claiming that as like a city. And I think that claiming it will see us through a lot of changes that are coming up in the city, a lot of growth, a lot of inflation, just all of that stuff. And I think being able to put our name on it, measure it in some capacity, allows you to advocate for it also. And I think that's going to be probably the next really big task for the Maker City, is to advocate for this group of people. And it's not even just a group of people, it's to advocate for a way of life in the city that's actively engaged in the creative process, and that generates more life, more creativity, more good things, and more stability, I think, in the long run. Yeah.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation around creativity, not just for a selfish, passionate pursuit, but for the pursuit of a life well lived. And as David said, Knoxville, Tennessee has always been the Maker City. You just happen to be paying attention at the right time. And so I think that's a very thoughtful way of thinking about this. And if you're listening from outside of Knoxville, which many people do, what I want you to think about is, where are those people? Where are those people that are competitive but collaborative? Where are your people? Find them. Take care of them. Let them take care of you. Don't be scared to ask questions, right? Show up quiet, show up loud, but make sure that you show up. And we like to end each episode with, if someone were to remember one thing from this conversation, what would that be? And this is in the spirit of thinking about a pitch or a show or a big idea. You're lucky if somebody remembers one thing. You're really lucky if they remember two. So, Siobhan, if someone were to finish this, what would you want them to remember from your experiences and this conversation?
I would say, as far as the, trying to create the community over competition mindset, like, stop looking at things in scarcity, because I think that's where I always was, and what kept me from moving forward and growing was like thinking that there is a scarcity around, hair or wigs because the market is flooded. There's, many people can do this or whatever. There doesn't have to be scarcity if you're if you're collaborating, and there's just so much to go around. There's so many people, like, it's just, yeah. And also, when you want to give up, just take a break and you'll be fine. Because, yeah,
It's easy to get burnt out.
it is so easy to get burnt out. Just take a break. It will refresh you.
Yeah, I would just tell the creatives out there that you're a creative person, and that gives you sort of a special superpower when it comes to running a business. And as long as you're involved in that creative act in the running of your business as well, you're gonna keep problem solving, and you're gonna keep finding solutions to figure it out. But it is an ongoing act. But I would say your creative people are more skilled, they're more set up for that than the average person, I think. It took me a while to realize that and to embrace that creative process sort of across all aspects of the business.
Well, creativity is problem solving. So regardless of where you are listening from and what you perceive yourself to be, if you're a scientist, if you're a business person, if you are a creative, creativity is not limited to art on a wall, right? It's not limited to you dance on a stage. It's not limited to hair on a head. It's only limited by what you let it limit you to. And so think about it. How do you solve problems? What hasn't been thought of yet? Who can you help next, right? And what can you do with the skills and talents that you have? Y'all, my name is Chris McAdoo. As always, honored to be with you. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate your ongoing support for Knoxville, Tennessee, the Maker City. And like David said, it's not because someone called it the Maker City. It's because it always has been. Y'all, let's get to work.